Welcome to the Biblical Leadership at Work podcast. I am your host, Jason Woodard. In this month's episode, we'll meet Chris Grainger, the founder of The Lion Within Us, an online men's discipleship community that helps brothers across the U.S. grow in their faith. Chris is a devoted husband and father who is passionate about fulfilling every role God has given him for the glory of Christ. Professionally, he works in marketing for an electrical distribution company and is an electrical engineer by training. Join us as Chris shares his powerful testimony, insights on biblical leadership wisdom, and how God has guided him to build a thriving online community that supports and encourages men in their walk with Christ. I hope you find this episode as inspiring and encouraging as I did. All right, well, Chris Grainger, brother, thank you for being on the podcast, man. I can't wait to get to know you and share your story with the audience, so thank you.
Oh, Jason, it's an honor to be here.
So talk to us a little bit about your background, man. Like, let's talk professionally, like how has God taken you kind of from, let's say, high school through to where you are now, and what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, after high school, I went to just a community college. I knew I wanted to do engineering. So, I went to community college, then I went to Old Dominion in Norfolk and had an electrical engineering background. So that was the thing. Got connected with an electrical distributor as like a co-op. That was a big deal for me back then was finding a job to help pay for college.
Right. Just get started. Yeah.
That's it. So I did a co-op for a couple semesters, and then I had a job waiting for me when I graduated, and went straight to that. And I'm still with that company now. I mean, I was 23 years ago. So it's been great working for them. And but I mean, so far as the faith element into it, there really wasn't. To be honest, there was no faith element into my work. It was just make as much money as you can and climb the ladder and.
Yeah.
Just, I always had a level of ethics in everything I did, but the faith, I didn't think that you could mesh those worlds,
Yeah, right.
So for the longest time, they didn't mesh at all. And from there, it's just been an interesting journey. We can go wherever you want so far as, learn. I kind of got into podcasting that opened up some doors, which has been kind of fun, but yeah, I just love to, wherever you think we should go here.
Yeah. What is your role now with the company? You've been there that long. What do you do for them?
Yeah, it's really transitioned a lot, man. I went from managing one of the big divisions, and then we decided to divest of that division. Just the economics didn't seem to, really make sense to keep making investments in it. So I transitioned from a technical oversight leadership role to more now into marketing, which is kind of crazy. So I shifted to marketing because I started the podcast for the company. And marketing and writing. So I just do a lot of writing, a lot of videos now. As a distributor, we make a lot of content, and that's been kind of my sweet spot. I can crank that stuff. Yeah. They like it, and it kind of differentiates us. So I've been doing that for the last couple of years.
That's really, I think, a unique background to have that technical, especially on the electrical engineering side, technical background that moves into a marketing role. I think that's a bridge that probably not many electrical engineers ever cross into.
No, man. Well, I mean, it's kind of like, most marketers have no clue what they're selling, right?
Right.
So they just want to make it flashy and make it look good. And I can be like, that's crap, yo. Like, we need to make this better. This is what really matters to people. And I think that's helped, just having that technical. And our executive team, they love it. They love that they have a technical eye on that side of the fence.
No, that is good. I know we have marketing people that work in our business, and that's their background. So we encourage them to come out and understand what we're making, what we're building, who our customers are. But they've got to learn that.
That's right.
You've already got that background.
That's right.
So this is an electrical distribution company. You guys working with like electricians, general contractors, is that who your customer base is?
Yeah, we're industrial, so primarily with the heavy big end users. We don't do a ton of contractor work, but yeah, that's primary. Southeast is where we're located.
Yep. Okay. So so tell me a little bit about that location, family. Like, what's your family situation? What's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, so I live in North Carolina, close to Raleigh. So we live on. We actually moved to a small farm last year. So we're coming up on a year and a half, where we've been here. So we got a horse boarding farm now. So we wanted to do homesteading and try get out of the suburbs. God was calling us to this, and he opened some crazy doors. And next thing you know, we were, sitting from the, 3,000 square foot home in the suburbs with a pool and all the stuff that comes with the suburbs to
Yeah.
a 1,600 square foot home built in 1950 on 23 acres where we got, 14 stall horse barn. So it's been like crazy, going with that, but got 4 kids, 14 down to 2, 3 girls and a boy, wonderful wife, and then the lion within us, all the stuff that goes with that. So it's just been really the last probably 18 months have been the craziest of my life.
Yeah. So are you guys getting right into the homesteading piece? Like you got, besides the horse boarding, animals, you're raising animals, big, huge garden, that sort of thing?
Yeah, big garden. We got chickens. We're getting ready to expand the chicken stuff out, and then my wife and I were trying to do small things, incremental things, projects
Yeah.
with water containment, trying to just manage that better. We want to do our own meat chickens now, so we're actually transitioning the type of bird out so we can raise our own meat chickens and
Yep.
just little pieces and elements like that. She cans everything, so we try to do all that. I pick on her. It's like, you do all the stuff and then we'll still pick up a pizza because you're so tired after doing all the work. You just want something to eat, right? But we're trying. We're making those steps in the right
That's good.
direction.
Yeah, when it was probably the late 90s, my family and my kids were real little then. We moved to it was only 2 acres, but we started big garden, raised some
Yep.
steer, and I can remember I was super fascinated with the whole idea of kind of that self-sufficiency, homesteading,
hmm
and it was still fringe then, right? This is,
Right.
30 years ago, a little less. And, you could find a few books about it. And I mean, at that time, the internet was just starting to be a thing. And now, and of course, now we live in a town, so we've kind of gotten away from all that, but it's not fringe anymore. It's
Yeah.
becoming more and more, I say mainstream. People are getting really serious about it. And of course, between YouTube and everything, there's so much available.
yeah.
People sharing what they're doing, how they're doing it, innovative ideas on how to do it.
That's right.
So some days I miss it. I think we love our house. We've got an old historic home in a historic neighborhood. My wife and I love, but
Nice.
man, a little bit missing being out in the country and having the animals and doing, it's even just physically, out there, whatever, splitting wood, doing chores,
Oh,
or
yeah.
get you out. Yeah, it's good. It's good for you. I think it was definitely good for our kids when they were little. I mean,
Yeah.
my son who's almost 30 now, but when he was 3 years old, he was out in the snow getting eggs. That was his job. You go get eggs
Oh,
for your
yeah.
chickens, and it's good.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
responsibility for him.
100%.
Yeah. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about your faith journey. How did you come to know the Lord? What's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of grew up in the South, man. It's kind of like everything in the South. You got football, you got racing, you got Jesus. Those are the three, right? But I didn't really have a relationship. I mean, we didn't go to church as a family. We knew God existed, but we didn't really lean into it. So I started going to church when I was 16, and for unrighteous reasons, because my girlfriend was going to church. She's like, "Hey, you want to go to church with me on Sundays?" I'm like, "Sweet, you're
Yeah.
wearing a dress. I get to go sit with you for a few hours.
Yep.
Absolutely, I'm all in." So completely unrighteous, but definitely got saved when I was 16. But man, to be honest with you, Jason, man, that's where kind of what led me to the Lion is after I got out the water, I had no guys walking with me. I had my dad, who's my hero. He's always been there, but I had no other spiritual mentors
Yeah. To
helping me along the
disciple you.
way.
Yeah.
And when I went to ODU, man, it was just like straight downhill. Just like, I mean, very secular school. Do what you want to do, live like you want to live. Get out of college with an engineering degree, went into sales, started making a lot of money. And man, my faith journey, it was just, I got there and I honestly thought that was the finish line. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm safe. Like, well,
I
good.
got my ticket punched. Yeah. Yep.
That's right. I'm good. And I just so did my thing, was married, had 2 little girls. They were 3 and 5. And then my wife at the time said, she's out. She left. She left all of us. She left me and the girls. So I'm sitting
Wow.
there with a 3 and 5-year-old, like, oh, okay. So I mean, at that point, really leaned into the church, started getting serious about my faith. Like, you know what? God's way has got to be better than my way because my way has led me here, which I mean, I got my girls. They've been with me ever since. And then we've had 2 more. That's how we have the 4 now. And we have a little age gap between them. But it was very clear that, you know what? Discipleship matters. And I'm not going to just sit by idly and not do anything about it. So that's what
Yeah.
really led to, the genesis of the Lion Within Us.
So tell us about that. We haven't talked much about that really at all yet. You and I have, but not on the
Yeah.
podcast so far. So tell us about what's the Lion Within. What is that?
Yeah, I mean, really, we built this. Well, first of all, it just started off with an idea that I knew was from the Holy Spirit. I went to my wife. I'm like, I think the Lord wants me to use this podcasting skill that I learned at my job for Him. I'm like, I really think He wants me to do this, babe. She was like, well, what do you think He wants you to talk about? I'm like, well, I've been in leadership roles literally since I was 14. Like I've been in management roles since I was 14. It's been crazy. I think He wants to talk about leadership and discipleship, to help guys really lean into that and just understand that better. And she starts laughing. I'm like, what are you laughing about? She's like, well, don't you think it's kind of, you're married? And at that time we had nothing but girls. I had my daughters, our two oldest daughters, and we had a little girl. She's like, you're surrounded by estrogen. He called me into this world of testosterone. She's like, obviously you got to do this. So, I mean, we was like, all right. So we just said, put a little simple business plan together, knew how to get a podcast out, and recorded about 3 months worth of episodes just on the back end, hit launch, and just prayed. And all of a sudden it just took off. It's like, wow. I mean, this was, 2021, 2022, somewhere around there. And the show just really just started taking off. And it was very quickly, it passed the show that we started for the business. I mean, in no time, it passed that for downloads, and said, okay, maybe we got something here. And the whole thing was like, podcasts, as you're sending a message out to many, but it's hard to talk to them directly about, what's going on in their life. So that's when I learned about this idea of online communities and trying to figure out, okay, how can we make this a tangible thing? And so we beta tested that. So we have like a virtual online community with an app and the whole experience. And then we launched it. And now we got, several different options of subscriptions for that community experience, where we're, doing masterminds with guys. We're doing Bible studies with guys, where we're bringing them together every day on a live, reading scripture. We call it a spiritual kickoff. So we have lots of different ways we're serving virtually. And then we also do, live events, a couple times a year as well. So it's
Nice.
been kind of cool to see how all of it it's just growing organically.
That is exciting to feel that you were called to do that and taking that step of faith in obedience and then seeing the fruit from it. Curious, on the app, did you develop that? Did you pay someone to develop that? That's something I've never
we could pay, but it's a lot of money. So we found a platform that's an open architecture type platform that it gave me what we needed for development. Without having to develop it from scratch. So, we can go live on it. We can post. It's kind of got like a social media look and feel to it.
Yeah.
But then you can also schedule events and coordination. So there's tons of flexibility, and it's mobile friendly. So it's an iPhone and an Android type. They have an app they can download. But once the guys get it and they see it, and it becomes very sticky because it's just a unique way to engage with them.
Nice. You got guys all over the country or in your area? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah, it's actually very little in my area, man. It's all over the U.S. and Canada right now. So we have a couple Canadians, primarily East Coast, but man, we got Indiana, Utah. I mean, literally all over Texas, Saskatchewan, Canada. I mean, it's nuts. So it's been kind of fun to see. Like our lunch, we have a Lion lunch on Wednesdays. We had a guy in Georgia, New Jersey, Saskatchewan, Indiana. And me in North Carolina. So
Nice.
we're all over the place.
So people could find you by searching in the App Store for the Lion Within app, and then obviously online.
I mean, the easiest way is the Lion Within online. Because if you go to the App Store and search for the Lion Within us, you're not going to find it because we go through that third party.
Okay.
So
all right.
So that's how that works. But
Nice.
But our website takes care of all that.
That's good. All right. What's hey, Chris? Question for you: spiritual disciplines. Like, what's that look like for you personally? How do you stay close to the Lord yourself and grow in sanctification?
Man, I mean, for me, it's in the Word daily, all the time. So as part of the Lion, we do what's called daily spiritual kickoffs. So that's literally every morning I'm picking this up and I'm reading God's Word for these guys. Like we've been working through Psalms since March. So that helps. So it's like, it kind of forces me a little bit.
Yeah.
But really, to be honest with you, there's a couple other things for me. I teach. all the time. I'm teaching at the church, teach kids, teach adults. So anytime I can find opportunities to teach, I'm gonna do it. I make that because teaching. If you have to teach something, you're gonna lean in.
That's right.
Uh, but
Yep.
probably the big thing for me is, as a podcaster, I do like listening to podcasts, but I listen to sermons. I got a couple of go-to pastors that, I vet, I trust, and now I love them, and I've got to meet most of them through the podcast, and then, those are the guys I'm constantly so I'm just very careful about what I allow to come in.
Yeah.
I just keep the go like, now I know nothing about the latest music that's out there, or I mean, I'm kind of a boring dude when it comes to that stuff. If you want to talk about, Leonard Skinner or 90s country, like
That's it. Yeah.
I'm your guy,
I'm
but
with you,
if you
man.
talk about these new folks, I just don't know them because I don't allow that in. So that's
Yeah.
just kind of maybe that makes a little weak spot for me, but I'd rather shore up the faith side.
Yeah. Who's some of the guys that you follow, Chris, on the
Oh,
podcast, the
number
preachers?
one, Joby Martin. He
Joey?
Joby,
Joby
Joby.
Martin. Okay.
But he's out of Florida, the Church of 1122. He's my guy. I've interviewed him 3 times. He's awesome. So I listen to him. I listen to a lot of John Piper.
I love John Piper.
Piper I'm not smart enough to listen to Piper, but I always feel smarter after I listen to him. It's one of those things. So then J.D. Greer, there's Robert Gadley. There's several other ones that I'm listening to a new pastor in Virginia now. So I'll kind of vet them first, but I mean Joey's my go-to. And just have a couple guys like this. I average probably 5 to 8 sermons a week.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah. Yep. It's so much out there. I was just I love R.C. Sproul. I don't know if you know,
There you
he
go.
passed away several years ago, but
Mhm.
I was of course they still have his stuff online. It's renewing your mind. I was just listening to one on the way home from work today. It's it's Christmas
Yep.
teaching, and just there's so much good content. So
It is,
Piper's
man.
another one. Yeah, that's good. That's a good way to put. Yeah, when I'm moving, or if I'm working out, or if I'm moving, I'm in the yard working, I'm
Yep.
whatever doing chores around the house, or I'm in my vehicle most of the time. I'm listening to a podcast and news a little bit, but also just there's so much good content from Bible teachers and preachers out there. So that's
I
good.
will say, since you said news, man, for your listeners out there, the number one for me, hands down, and I always give them a shout out wherever I can. But the briefing with Albert
Oh
Muller.
yeah, I listen to it probably 3 or 4 times a week.
Oh yeah, okay. So
Absolutely.
just making
Incredible.
sure, yeah, like
Yes.
hands down, probably one of the best ones out there.
It's like I feel like sometimes I don't know. I could go on and on about that. The fact that man can come on every day and analyze a
Yep.
topic. I mean,
Yep.
I said one day. So most of the men I'm close with at my church we listen to the briefing also.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I might be able to do what he does if I had a month to prepare.
Right.
Maybe. I said that man gets up at 3 a.m. every day and just cranks another one out, and it doesn't matter what the topic is. If it's World War history, like political history, just
there's a trick
crazy.
to what he does, and I don't know if you know this. So, and I've met with his assistant because we were trying to work out how to come on. He's actually got a photographic memory. So
Yeah, I figured he had to have just an incredible memory.
yeah, so he doesn't forget anything, man. And and like they've shown pictures of him prepping. I mean, just
papers everywhere. Yeah.
it's a dumpster fire on his desk. But I mean,
Yep.
he knows what it is. But I trust that man. I mean, he definitely his insights are incredible.
Yeah. He is one of definitely less than 5, maybe 1 or 2 men that I follow that I can honestly say I've never heard him say one thing ever that I was like, I don't know if I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like there's guys like John MacArthur. I love John MacArthur. Once in a while, I'm like, I don't know. It's a little bit like nothing first order. These are all godly men, that God's called to. But there's a couple, and Muller's one of them that I've just like never. Doesn't make him any better. I've just like in my own analysis, I'm like, man, this guy's just brilliant, and he's balanced, and biblical, and full of grace and truth, and
he's awesome.
He is awesome. My go-to every day on news that I do tell a lot of people about is The World and Everything in It. It is a news podcast, been around as a daily news podcast for probably 13 years. They've had a magazine out there for decades. I can't remember what the name of the magazine was, but now it's under the World News Group. But they do like a 25-minute daily news podcast. It's all, from a biblical perspective. But yeah, it's that one. And then the briefing is my
Yep.
mainstay each
Nice.
day. So that is
Nice.
good. Let's not talk about leadership a little bit, Chris. Like you said, you've been in leadership for a long time. When you think about leading others at work, at church, family, like what are the core principles that you always go back to? And as you disciple men that you talk about, like always go back to key things.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over the place. I mean, probably the one that just comes up the most salient, the most often is just humility, man. And I think that's like, there's so many guys out there, they want to get on top so they can have some power.
Yeah.
And I just always had to bring them back to the upside down kingdom. I'm like, that is not what at the end of the day, it's about serving, it's about loving and thinking less of ourselves and we're not thinking less of ourselves, but thinking about ourselves less. It just, those basic fundamental definitions. And usually, when I'm working with guys, the thing that gets in our way is pride. Pride
Yeah.
jumps in, and once pride starts taking over, and it doesn't take much, a little pinhole of pride can really penetrate and cause a lot of issues. So that's usually where we try to go and try to help with.
Yeah. Yep. Sharp. Yep. Just knock some of that off. You're right. It's the kind of the pride is just the poison that kind of can go all over
That's right.
leadership and undermine it. When you were a younger leader, what were some things that you struggled with, and have you learned to manage them? Do you still kind of struggle with them? Like, what did that look like when you were a
Yeah.
young leader?
Yeah, I think when I was a younger leader, a lot of when I think back to when I first got like a sales engineer role and I was given a account package and it's like, okay, you go sell this and this is your product box, if you will, of what you have to offer. Fear of not knowing and fear the feeling like I always had to have the answer. And that crippled me. Like for the first 6 months, I remember saying in my manager's office, he's like, bro, he's like, you're too smart to just be sitting in this office. Why aren't you going out selling? I'm like, well, I'm trying to figure out, this product. So when I get in front of a customer, I want to have all the answers. He's like, do you think you're ever going to have all the answers? I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's never going to happen. And then he was like, he did something to me, Jason. It was crazy. He's like, you like motorcycles, right? I'm like, he's like, do I know anything about motorcycles? And I said, I don't think so. He's like, give me 5 minutes. And I wanted out of his office. I came back in and he did a sales call where he was a motorcycle salesman. Didn't know anything about motorcycles, but was just engaging me in conversation around motorcycles. And at the end of the day, he got the PO. And I'm like, bro, I need to know how to do that. He's like, well, he taught me a lot about humility,
Yeah.
knowing when to say, I don't know, but I will find out. And
Yeah.
just asking superb questions. And that's that lesson served me really well, throughout my sales career.
I love that, man. That's a lesson you'll never forget. That is
No, I mean,
awesome.
I'm still telling it 20 years later.
Yeah, right. And that goes back to, I think, what you said about the pride issue is, and really at the end of the day, you wanted to have all the answers. You wanted people to think whatever. That's a pride thing. And we do it, right?
Right.
I mean, that's something we always teach young employees, and that's part of our culture. We're really trying to develop where I work is like, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right.
And for the guys and gals who have been there a long time, is always be ready and willing to answer questions. We want that type of environment where people are never fearful of asking questions, and that they know they're going to get help. They know they're going to get people to come and support them. And that's developed for us a pretty collaborative environment. And
Nice.
just trying to keep that level of humility for everybody. Hey, we're here to help. We know that you don't have the answers, and
That's right.
I had a conversation recently with a young apprentice, and I told him, and I've gone through an apprenticeship, and I said, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. We promoted you because we see all the potential in you. So don't ever, do something risky or dangerous. And he's in a field that, he gets into electrical panels and things. I'm like, don't ever be afraid to ask a question. It's okay. We expect that you're working with guys who have been in this field for 20, 30 years. We don't expect you to know even a lot at this point. So
Right.
ask
That's right.
questions. You've proven yourself to a point to get this. So I think that's huge. Chris, when you go into your work environment, so we talked a little bit about that. You're in you work in a electrical distribution. It's not a ministry. You're working around other people who probably some are believers, many are not. But so in your work, how do you try to honor Christ? What are some things that you do in your work environment to honor the Lord in that job?
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing is trying to just show the light wherever I'm at. And then I really took an intentional, or just a leap of faith last year with the company. I went to HR and I said, you know what? Something burnt is on my heart. And I think I have an opportunity to help some employees. And they were like, what are you thinking? I'm like, well, I'd like to start a prayer group within the company. Everybody gets a lunch break. There's lunch hours. We have lots of remote workers too. It's like, would you be opposed if I were to talk to some people, one on one? Maybe we don't send out a broadcast email from HR about this, but if some people want to utilize that lunchtime to get together on a regular cadence and pray, and they actually thought it was a great idea. We're like,
Wow, that's great.
why don't you explore that and explore that with some people, with some management? So I explored it with some management, uh, came back, and now we've had a standing weekly every Wednesday, and that's turned into a Bible study now too. So we pray for the first 20 minutes or so, and then whoever wants to stay for the lunch hour, we dive into the Word, and it's been
Wow.
a great way just to get to know each other and encourage each other. And then that's now opened up. I've kind of become the company pastor or something.
Chaplain. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's like corporate chaplains of America. So,
Yep.
it's not like that, but it's like, I mean, they're texting me on the side about, I got this going on in my family or this and that, and which is great. And it's just
Yeah, praise the
it's
Lord for that. Yeah.
but I mean, it took a little bit of a risk for
Yep.
me just to have the conversation, but it was, I was like, all right, this is a no brainer. If she says no, what's the worst that can
Yeah.
happen? So
That's right. Yeah.
let's try it. And now it's turned into something that's blessing some folks.
That's great, man. That's a huge success story. Hopefully it'll be an inspiration to people. I had a boss one time, and he was a believer, and he and I, we knew that about each other, and we started just every Friday morning we'd meet in his office and pray. We did that for a long time, and that was and we just prayed about work stuff, people we
Mhm.
knew that were struggling, and about our leaders, praying for them, and that was really really good. But that's cool that that's grown like that. How many people on a
Yeah,
weekly basis come?
on a weekly, it could be, 5 to 10
Yeah.
folks. We have probably 20 something on our list, and then
Yep.
we're looking to see, okay, how can we expand it out next year in 2025? So we'll see. It's just being, faithful in the small things, and we'll see
That's right.
how God grows it.
That's good. Yeah, good for you, man. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, if you had someone come to you as gonna move into a leadership role, first time ever, and they're like, "Hey, man," and you probably have had this in your discipling that you do with other men, but they're just want to sit down with you and get some advice on what they should do as a first time leader, what they should not do. What are some things that you would talk to them about?
I always just go back to asking really good questions, not coming in with any too many preset notions and, because they said this is the way it's always been done. I always like asking questions, understanding, exploring, definitely not trying to flex any type of authority too early. I think that
Yeah,
gets a lot of guys in trouble, when we start trying our way through versus, there's a saying I tell guys all the time of seek first to understand.
yeah,
Let's
yep,
seek first to understand, guys. It's biblical, it's scriptural. James talked about it. And just slow down a little bit. Ask some really good questions. Understand the underlining, driving factors here, and then perspective. I mean, the problem that most leaders have is they only take into account their perspective, and we don't slow down enough to understand the other perspectives around us. I mean, even to the point where for my leader now, who's our COO of our company, they're thinking about different businesses and things they should look at moving forward from an acquisition standpoint. And he was like, before we go that far, I want to slow down and understand the market variables. Like, let me understand the competitors a little bit better. So he put me on a project to do that. Most leaders wouldn't do that. Most
yeah.
leaders say, we got the capital. Let's go figure out where we want to spend the money, who we can buy. And I think those steps of slowing down, asking really good questions is going to served him well in his career. And I think it serves lots of guys.
Yeah, that's something I got to constantly remind myself of. My team and I did a disc,
Oh, yeah.
the disc. So we did a kind of a group disc thing this week with an HR kind of a consultant that we work with on projects, and she came in and walked through it. It was a good reminder for me because I'm a shoot first, ask questions later
Yeah.
wired guy, and there's several people on my team that are more methodical,
Yep.
and like different pace, and I have to remind myself that I need to give them some space to think through, whatever my next brilliant idea is that I want to start tomorrow. And
That's right.
you just got to listen. The one I always say, if people have listened to my podcast, they hear me say it all the time, but it's listen, learn, then lead, especially when you're new on a team, new to an organization.
That's right.
Yeah.
Amen to
What's,
that. Good.
yeah, that will serve you well. What's, like, what do you hope for your legacy, Chris? I know you've got many years ahead of you. You're not on the edge of retirement, but when you think about, when that time comes and you leave your organization, for example, you've been there 23 years. That's a long time. What do you hope people would remember about you?
Yeah. From that company standpoint, I don't really know. I think really when I think about legacy, I'm thinking more Lion now of what can we do from a Lion standpoint to where, we're helping disciple guys well into the future. And Mike Tyson made a funny quote about legacy a few weeks ago. I don't know if you heard that.
No,
It
I'm
was
sure it's interesting.
well, it was a kid who asked him about legacy. He's like, man, legacy, nobody cares about legacy. You're going to die, and then, people are going to forget about you in a couple hundred years. And that just, it hit me
It's
between
true.
the eyes.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, that's not a bad way to really think about it. Of like,
Yeah.
Tyson's, you don't get a lot theological right, but you got that right. I mean, it's just, at the end of the day, man, like, I just need to, for me, serve and love my family the best I can now, not get too wrapped up in the business items, and know that God's going to provide, and just try to teach the fundamental truths to as many people. The number one disciples are my kids,
Yeah.
and then the other disciples that come across my path, the guys that I'm meeting at the line within us. I mean, if we can teach a couple just fundamental truths there, and then let that ripple effect just happen, right? I mean, I think that for me, that would be check the box at the end of the day. Hopefully I hear the words, well done, good and faithful servant.
That's right. That's it. Yep. My favorite Tyson quote is everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
That's it. That's it. Things change then, man.
Well, I was thinking recently about my grandfather on my father's side. Before he passed, he's been gone, I don't know, 15 plus years now. But several years before he died, he took up wood carving as a hobby. And I have in my bathroom, it's a cross with a hand holding it. It's a wood carving. And then he wrote on it, God forbid that I should glory in any other but the cross of Christ. And it's, super personal to me. He was someone I always looked up to as just a man, but also a man of faith. And what the thought that occurred to me the other night was my youngest son never met him. So he doesn't have any memory of him. Even my oldest son has a little memory, but now my grandchildren, like when I pass away, his memory's gone by the time my generation passes away. And, people talk about that in the third generation. So first, for sure, as believers, that's, to your point, at the end of the day, it's well done, good and faithful servant. That's it. That's our goal. So
that's it.
That's awesome.
That's
so, hey,
it.
brother, before we wrap up, we talked a little bit about the website, but I want to make sure people know how they can reach out to you, find out about the Lion Within, investigate it, see. I mean, it's a men's discipleship community online. And
right.
Discipleship is really the reason I do this podcast, is to help other Christian leaders grow. And it helps me, and I'm hoping it helps others. So it's all about that. So I definitely want to make sure they are clear on how they can find you, get a hold of you, how they can check it out. Is there even some pay? Does it cost anything, or can they do some of it for free? Let's talk a little bit more about that before we wrap up.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, first of all, just for your listeners, email me. I mean, Chris@thelionwithin.us is my email address. So just send me an email, but then go to the Lion Within. That's thelionwithin.us. So it's not .com, but it's .us. Okay. And, if you pop there, you're going to find at the top toolbar, we have free resources. So we have, I'm an author on the Bible app for YouVersion. So I got 30 something devotions out there. So we have those up there. We have our weekly newsletter, which is not like some cheesy newsletter. Like I really put some thought leadership into it. And then we have a really cool Christian leader assessment. Like it's 7 levels. It's incredible. We put a ton of time, effort, and money into it. So, and all that's free. So just go
Okay.
check that stuff out for your listeners. But then you'll find on that same tab, we have offerings, and then we have 3 tiers to our community. Everything it's a paid model that we have this set up because we're keeping trolls out and we're really serving highly the guys that are there. We have events happening Monday through Saturday. Every day of the week there's an event between our mastermind groups, our lunches, our Bible studies. On Friday, we have what's called our Friday Forge, where we throw out a complex topic, and then how do you address it as a Christian man? So we'll talk about, somebody commits suicide, do they go to heaven? That was last week.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
we hit some hard topics, like how do you
Yep.
defend that? So that's all part of it. So just actually thelineWithin.us and explore that,
Awesome.
and just reach out if you have questions.
I'll put the link to that in the podcast show notes and on the YouTube. So yeah, for sure. I want to check it out. Appreciate what you're doing, man. That is, that's amazing. I mean, just to be able to have that resource for people from wherever they are, they can be in community, and for sure pray that they have that community within their church. But, sometimes that doesn't exist for whatever reason. And even if it does exist, this is an additional command you can come alongside of. So, yeah.
Yeah, and what the guys have been telling me mainly is, we have men's groups in our churches, but very rarely do they get real. I mean, we'll get together once a month, we'll have a sausage biscuit or something like that, but it's hard to really, I'm struggling with pornography, or I'm struggling with this in my marriage, or I'm struggling with finances. It's hard in the local church sometimes to be that transparent. These guys, I don't know why. It's a God thing, but they come in with that. And then next thing you know, it's iron sharpening iron. These guys are just leaning in. So just encourage you to check it out if you're looking for authentic, transparent type connections.
That's good. That's true, man. Because can be a challenge. So praise the Lord for that, man. Thank you for what you're doing, brother. I look forward to getting this out there, and hopefully we get some more people that find value in that and will connect with your group. So thank you for your time. I know you're busy. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate you.
All right. And thank you for joining us this month to hear from another leader God is using to advance his kingdom. I pray this episode has blessed you and encouraged you. Be sure to tune in next month for another inspiring story from a leader striving to honor Christ and their work.